So language is at the very root of our humanity. God made us to be in communion with him and with each other through language. We are corporeal, so we use a physical medium, that of words. And words are made of sounds. And babies, right here, they learn to talk by imitating sounds. Is this one doing that yet? Yeah, okay, good. Exactly. That's how he's going to learn how to talk. Now, we wouldn't need the study of phonics if our only goal was to teach children to listen and to talk, right? If that's all you're going to do, who needs phonics? But it was the invention of writing that sort of made this all necessary, because thanks to the invention of writing, we now can communicate with each other through time and space, right? So we represent the sounds that this little one is learning, the oral sounds, through letters. And we represent, and letter combinations that form words. So that's called phonics. A phoneme is simply a sound, and a phonogram is the letter or letter combinations that represent it. So for example, this is B, right? That's just B. And this one is Ch, but it's really Ch, K, Sh. It's really got three sounds because it can be church, school, and what's where it makes, oh, chef, right? The CH sound can make any of those. The CH phonogram can make any of those sounds. So we want to teach our kids all of that, okay? We want to be thorough in teaching our kids what these phonograms can do, okay? So first, an aside, we're going to teach the phonogram representation of sounds orally, visually, and kinesthetically. Okay, we're going to engage as many senses as we can, hearing, sight, and touch. We can't really do smell, and we can't really do taste, I guess, but we could if we had those markers that do the flavors, but yeah. So anyway, this means we teach letter formation, also known as penmanship. And penmanship, it's getting a bad rap these days. Entire school districts aren't even teaching it anymore. Why teach penmanship in a digital age when all the kids really need to know is keyboarding? Well, here's the fact of the matter is that writing out these phonograms actually enables literacy. By producing the letters, children engage not only the visual and the oral aspects of each phonogram, but also its form and its structure, and that it's much more effective than simply hitting a key on a keyboard. So, of course, neurophysiologists have done studies that show what happens to the brain with pre-readers when they learn sounds and letters in conjunction with penmanship. There's a huge spike in brain activity in the reading network and in the sensory and motor area controls that control verbalization and creative thought. So actively creating letter forms with your hands as you associate them with sounds, that stimulates brain activity in a way that keyboarding doesn't. And it engages both hemispheres of the brain, and it develops very precise small motor skills, so why not do it, right? You're all nodding, you all get this. All right. So we start by giving our kindergartners a gigantic stack of penmanship paper, or erasable whiteboards with penmanship grids all marked, the header and the footer and the midline. But it's, sort of dangerous waters. I mean, if you go above the header, the pterodactyl will get you. And if you go below that shark, it'll get you too. So when you practice, the first thing we do then is we practice the basic strokes, the zigzags, the vertical lines, the horizontal lines, sort of the backwards circle, the M, all of that sort of thing, the inverted U. I mean, we'll spend some time just doing all those basic shapes that form letters, but we'll be trying to avoid the pterodactyls and the sharks and stay within those boundaries. It's a matter of life and death, I'm telling you. And so after a few weeks of doing that, of just making it so that their small motor skills can handle those strokes, well, then we move on to the actual letter strokes. So the way we do this is, we give them very explicit instructions, but it's not just doing penmanship pages in a workbook. They're learning the letter formation at the same time that they're learning the sounds. So the first thing you would do is you'd say to your kiddos, okay, put your pen up at the header line and pull it straight down and say, whoa. Do it again. oh. Okay? Oh, do it 5 times, however long it takes. Good, now you put your pencil down, and let's just look at what you wrote. Read it back with me. Oh, you don't have to. Oh, oh. Okay? Good, you ready for a new one? This is going to get a little trickier. So, put your pen at the top again, pull it straight down, but this time go across and say t, right? Do it again, straight down, t. Do it again, straight down and across, t. Okay, now put your pens down, do it with me, t, 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 right? You really don't have to do. Oh, you guys can do it with me though. That's awesome. All right, we knew you were here for a reason. That's great. So good, you just made the t sound. And then now we're gonna do our little backward circle that we've been practicing for weeks, because this is a little tricky. It takes a while to get this one. Say with me, ah. Pull it straight down. Start at 2 o'clock on the clock. Pull it around just like we've been doing for weeks. Come all the way up and then straight down and say ah. Okay, so you do this for weeks, however long it takes. And once the kids are ready, you can start doing things where you're just pointing to the letters and letting them make the sounds with flashcards or whatever. So and this is an imitation exercise. They're imitating what the teacher is doing. So when our imitatio exercise sort of gets them to mastery of letter formation, well, then we start stringing the sounds together, and this is when it gets fun. Okay, now let's just do our warm-up drill today. Okay, it's mid-October, and we're so ready for this. So first, Okay, now you've done this 50 times. Just do your Now do it again. Very good. Okay, had enough of that. We've done it 5 times. Now let's do, you remember this one. Let's do ah. Okay, ah. Do another one. All right. Now let's do a couple of t. You ready for that one? Remember how to do it? Raise your hand if you don't. Etc. Right? Okay, and then the big moment comes, and then this is just so amazing. All right, go to the next line. Okay, we're going to do our and this time, go ahead and do your ah. Okay, put it right next to it. Now do your t. Okay, good. Now let's, what we've been doing for weeks. Ah, t. And you get it. You know what's coming next. You put the little arrows down and you go like this, and then they go, mat, mat. Matt. So this is how you teach them how to read. And it really actually works pretty well. So they're reading and they're learning penmanship simultaneously with the phonetic sounds. They're not doing it in isolation. They're not doing penmanship over here and phonetics over here. It's all working together. And we drill these things because, these are pretty easy. Well, A is a, ah. That actually has 4 different sounds associated with it, but this just has 1. This just has t. But the phonograms get, sort of increasingly complex, like the multiple letter phonograms. This is the 2-letter A that ends words. This is the 2-letter A that does not end words. This is the ch, k, sh phonogram that we talked about a minute ago. This is the 3-letter I. So there's about 85 of these things. And, it takes a couple of months for a kindergartner to sort of get all these down and be able to tell you what they are when you flash them a flashcard, especially if you're sort of making it real as to this is why we're doing this. And we do it, we know that kids have to move. So you want your teacher to just be doing everything possible to make this a very active thing. Trampoline in the classroom, Okay, now the next one gets to go. The next one maybe gets this one and has to go 2-letter A that ends words. I mean, whatever to keep them moving because these are little kids. And then you can do sort of competition, this side of the room versus this side of the room. Or, shout outs, or the blondes versus the brunettes, or you can do the girls versus the boys. They thrive on competition, so it's very motivating. It brings out their natural energy, so you might as well do it. And then, after they're sort of starting to string their phonograms together pretty well, this is just, one of a gazillion methods to keep them active and make it work, actively. You line them up, and they have to stand there and figure it out. Jump, jump, And then as soon as they get it, they're supposed to do what's on the card, and then they get to go to the back of the line, and then the next one. He has to work out the word, then he gets to do it, and then he has to go to the back of the line. Then it gets a little more complicated. So, the point is, I don't want you to picture them just sitting there doing these drills at the desk. That's not ever how it should work. Yeah, there's going to be seat work, but that's not really practical for 5 and 6 year olds. So you want to keep them moving. And if they do this decoding and it says sit, he sitteth. They cooperate because it's fun. So, and 95%, this is sort of amazing, 95% of words in the English language can be decoded by just learning these 85 phonograms, and kids can learn them literally in a few months. And then about 24 rules, that's it. If you do that set of phonograms and the 24 rules, you basically have tools for understanding how any word in the English, how 95% of the words in the English language are spelled. So let's give them these tools. We might as well, the studies show that they work. We sort of threw phonics out for a while. But then studies in the 1990s, they just showed that maybe was a bad idea. So anyway, then when we finally get around to teaching spelling and vocabulary, which starts pretty young in a classical school, we always start with a phonetic analysis. So I've just thrown 2 words on here that we might do a phonetic analysis with. And it's just a matter of, what's the first sound you see? It's the ch. Well, which sound is it? The first, the second, or the third? Ch, k, sh. It's the first. So you could mark it with a little 1 here. Then you've got your 2-letter A that does not end words. A, 2-letter A that does not end words. And then you have your phonogram. So it's just 3 phonograms that make up the word chair. Then photograph. Couple more. This is your 2-letter F, O, and it's actually the second sound of the A, O, U, phonogram. T, O, again, it's the second sound. G, R, A. So A, A, but it's the first sound. And then your 2-letter F again. So the kids just get used to doing this. You do this every day with your vocabulary words for a couple of years, and your spelling skills are going to start to get, pretty good. And then when you can, the teacher can kind of do some root stuff. Photos. In Greek, that means light. Graph, well, that is the Greek word to write. To write with light. That's what a photograph is. Is that cool or what? So that's how we teach spelling as the years go by. Just basically daily phonetic analysis of increasingly complex words. And it gives the kids the tools to understand the logic of how a word is spelled. And it helps them retain the spelling of a word, and then obviously it helps them with word retention when they're reading.